A midlife crisis is a gift. It is meant to stop you in your tracks and be like, do I like what I'm doing? Do I like where I'm at? What does my body need? What does my mind need? What does my spirit need?
Welcome to the Anniston Riekstins Show. This space is created for the woman coming home to her voice, her power, her way. For the woman remembering who she really is, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the world's expectations. I'm Anniston, transformational guide, spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and creator, here to walk beside you, to share stories, wisdom, and energy that guide you back home. Here, we lead from the inside out. We create from overflow, not hustle. We rise not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who we've always been. This isn't just a podcast. It's a homecoming. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. There is a difference between managing symptoms and actually healing. And today's conversation is about healing from the root. I'm sitting down with Dr. Cynthia Sumner, doctor of natural medicine, whole food specialist, and author of a healing recipe book that has sold over 4,000 copies. For more than 2 decades, she has supported women in cultivating physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual wholeness. Side note, I met Cynthia about 8 months ago. And again, I immediately felt calm in her space. I noticed her energy and I wanted to be near her and I wanted to be around her. And so over the course of this last year, I've had an opportunity to actually do some energy work with her, to get to know her work better on a deeper level. And she is incredible. Cynthia specializes in hormone regulation so women can truly thrive through menopause, not just survive it, but thrive, ladies. What I love about Cynthia's work is that she does not separate the body from the emotional life. She understands that fatigue, mood swings, brain fog, burnout, and even business blocks are often connected to deeper imbalances, and healing begins when we are willing to look beneath the surface. In this episode, we talk about root cause healing, the mind-body connection, emotional processing, and what it actually takes to feel like yourself again. We also explore how hormone balance impacts confidence, clarity, leadership, especially for women in midlife. If you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, or like your body is working against you, this conversation will feel empowering and super practical. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. I am so happy that you are tuning in. I have an incredibly special guest and someone I call a very good friend and a sister to me, Cynthia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Anniston. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I've been dreaming about doing this ever since we met. It feels like a lot longer than it was. I feel like I've known you a lot longer than I
I
actually
know.
have. I think I did last spring. So it's been almost a year. But I remember I was at a women's retreat and the facilitator had invited Cynthia over and to just facilitate the most incredible sound bowl healing, which was like out of this world. But before that, she had made the most delicious, like vegan dessert I had ever had in my life. And I was like, I need to know this woman. I need to know her. I was like, she's special. She's got multi-talents. And then now that I know you, I'm like, wow, every time I'm with you and we're talking, there's like another layer and another layer. So I'm
Mhm.
just excited for the listeners to get to know you. And I'd love to just dive right in. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, how is it that you came into the natural wellness space? And what was it in your life that facilitated that move?
Mm. Yeah. I love how you're talking about all these different layers of things that I do. And really, it's so humbling because the reason why I facilitate those things and practice those things is because it was my search for healing for my own self and I found those things. And once you experience that type of deep inner healing, you can't not share it. I mean, I can't not share it. And so it's because of the pain that I was in that led me to those beautiful remedies. And I have been sharing whole healing for almost 27 years now. And I've become more and more passionate about it with every day. It doesn't diminish and it brings so much quality to my life and depth to my life to share it with others. So it started with when I was 20 years old. I ended up with some really chronic issues and none of the specialists and doctors that I went to could figure out what was going on with me, and it was a really scary time. I felt like I was dying, and really, I was. Fast forward when I can look back and find what was actually going on with me. My digestive system was shut down. I wasn't absorbing any nutrition, and then it just was a cascade, effect of causing all these other issues. So it was a major gut issue. And I remember coming home from one of the last doctor visits we had set up, feeling so scared. I got married young, so I was with my husband and we had a baby. And I just thought, what am I going to do? No one can help me. And I had this
Mhm.
feeling wash over me. And even to this day, I can feel it as if I was there. And I had this thought that said, you need to pray. And I could feel that there was something to discover. I was only 20. I had so much to learn still, but I couldn't deny that I could feel there was something to discover. I went home and went in my room right when we got home, knelt down, said a prayer, and had this feeling wash over me that said, you will learn to heal yourself and you will help others do the same. And I had no idea what that looked like. I didn't know anything about the whole healing world. In fact, I lived a life of worry, confusion. I
Mm.
was always feeling like, I don't know. I was like in this state of, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to find answers. And that's a horrible place to live. It's so disempowering. So when I had this feeling, you will heal yourself and you'll help others, I didn't know how, but I knew it was true. And then within like a couple days, I had a neighbor came over, knocked on my door, and she's like, I know this is strange, but I had a feeling to bring this videotape. This is how long ago it was, a videotape over.
I love it.
And it was, if anyone's heard of Dr. Christopher, he's known all over the world. He's a doctor of natural medicine, and he had this tape on healing the body from the inside out with herbs and nutrition, and I could not write fast enough. So I'm like rewinding and re-listening and taking notes. I'm learning about the body and T cells and nutrition, and I was like, of course. And in that moment, I gained the deepest testimony that nutrition matters. And I started making these little changes with my food. It's not like this overnight overhaul, but just started eating better, and within days, I started feeling better. And I just built upon that. The physical healing, I was able to clear all of my issues that I had going on that was just so confusing. Nobody knew what was going on. My body healed itself just by giving it the time it needed, the nutrition it needed. And then it led me to what I needed most, and that was emotional healing. A lot of hardship in my life leading up to that time through my childhood, just really, really challenging trials and issues. And I learned that our emotions directly affect our body. And that's what led me into what I really specialize in, and that's emotional wellness.
And I have directly experienced you serving me and really facilitating an emotional healing, which is again another reason why I felt so connected to you and so inspired and motivated to share you with this community because I also believe and have through my own health issues come to understand that you cannot approach an issue that's happening, especially physically, just physically, because it's
Mhm,
never just physical. That's
mhm.
generally not the root, it's not where it starts. So, if you don't mind sharing, like for you, what emotions did you uncover that were directly linked to your issues that you were having in your body?
It was almost shocking to realize what I was believing and feeling because I had been so disconnected from that reality. I just didn't know enough about being intentional and conscious and noticing what I'm actually feeling. I knew that I was in a lot of fear. I dealt with some really deep depression that I learned how to manage. I had
Mhm.
learned to choose to be positive, and that served me very well. Then it got to a point where I needed to take it to the next level and do the real healing, right? And I always say that choosing to be positive is so amazing. It's so essential, but it's step two. Step one is finding and acknowledging what you're actually feeling. working through it, and then choosing to be positive and happy because you create with that. So, what I uncovered was so much fear. Just, I realized I was afraid to even be here on earth.
Mhm.
Like, I was disconnected from the earth because I was afraid to be here. So, it's almost like without realizing it, the earth was my enemy, and I just felt so far from God and so far from like help. And I had these false beliefs that I didn't matter, that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't worthy. And it was so sad to realize that's what I was believing about myself. And so many do, and we do without realizing it most of the time.
You were in your 20s, girl. I mean, that age, the age that you were having to deal with real life stuff like chronic health issues, and most 20-year-olds are in college or they're worrying about boys and dating and getting their
Mhm.
first jobs. And, how, in terms of your path, I'm curious if you'd be willing to share, was this like a straight shot? Did you just go straight from that into serving other people with it? Or was it like an evolution of you stepping into this identity, into this role?
Yeah, definitely it was a process, but I would say I think it's just my personality. It's like I can't stop it from coming out. And so it was like as soon as I started learning, I was like telling people and
Mhm.
thinking about, in fact, it was just a few months later that I got all of the pamphlets and information about this school of natural healing to start like getting certified to learn because I knew like I couldn't get enough and I still can't. And it's amazing. I love it. I just have stacks of books and I continue to learn. I think it's just my purpose. It got to a point then 4 kids later, so I had 4 kids and I started a business. So I'd been helping people for years. Like my name started getting passed around. Oh, if you
Mhm.
call Cynthia, she can help you. I cared so much, so I would spend hours researching for each like thing that the person was experiencing. Finally, my husband's like, "You need to charge if you're gonna be doing this?" And I was like, "No, this is a gift of mine, and so I just need to do it for free." And then I learned that actually you need to charge for your time, and it
Yeah.
is a gift to the other person, right? So that they're investing in themselves. So I started a business, and it was a few years in. Then I had this next aha because I was just helping people with their nutrition, not just, but I was helping people with their nutrition. And I had this thought come to me that said, "Your gift is to help people heal emotionally." And I was like, "What? I have no idea how to do that, what that means." And just God led me line upon line. He's been my mentor to introduce me to a book or a thought, and he's helped me learn how to process my own emotions. And I think we shared this when we were on the panel together with for a line where the feeling was just make it not weird. Like, just help people understand emotions and know how to work through them. It doesn't have to get any woo woo, or it's just we all have emotions and we need to learn how to work through them.
Right. It's so true though, because it's kind of crazy when you think about emotions play such a big part in all of our lives, but it's almost like it's a language we never learned or we were never taught in grade school and sat down and said, here are the gamut of emotions that you will be experiencing. None of them are inherently bad. This is how they can become destructive if you don't express them correctly, and here's
Right.
how to express them correctly, and or here's how to transform them when maybe they have become repressed before they start wreaking havoc on your body, right? I wanna sign up for
Right?
that. Like, where is that
Me
class in
too. I
elementary
know.
school?
I know.
It's crazy. So I want to dig in a little bit more and just almost get a little bit granular because, again, your work is so multidimensional. You do this incredible work in terms of supporting women. Do you also work with men or is it just women?
I do work with men, but mostly women.
Mostly women. Okay.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes when a client comes to you, is it because of a physical issue? Is that typically what brings them to you first, or is it because of an emotional issue?
It started that way. So it was like weight release or rashes or just anything you can think of. It started with some physical thing. And what I found was there's always an emotional component. So I started integrating helping with the emotions. And then it just naturally led into I spend most of my time doing sessions for people on emotions. And then we'll incorporate something physical to support that. But if you think about it, when we're really stressed, that puts pressure on our heart. Our heart starts beating faster. We sweat. It puts pressure on our immune system, our adrenals. And so it really is like the first place I go is emotions. Then we support that with nutrition and exercise and getting outside and all the things. But I would say emotion as number one. So it's ended up that that's just where I spend most of my time.
What has expanded? Which I will say, and I have done I've tried many different modalities. I've shared in this space before that for me, my story was chronic UTIs that just mysteriously, they didn't know why. And I tried all the things, literally
Mhm.
wrecked my body with antibiotics, wrecked it to the
Mhm.
point completely allergic to them. My body was like, no more. And it wasn't until I turned around and I actually sat down and I was like, I'm going to ask this pain what it wants to tell me. And then all these
Mm.
repressed memories started coming up. So I kind of like fumbled my way into like getting underneath it and then went through the process. But it was a process. What I
Yeah.
experienced when I sat with you, and I would love to share, is that you create this, like you have naturally, Cynthia, you just have the most calm, safe energy about you. So even
Mhm.
though I didn't know you very well at this point, it's like I immediately was at ease and could just relax into the situation and just allow you to guide me through the process. And I want to share with anyone listening that is thinking like that you need support with emotional healing, that it was actually a really beautiful process. There was no like I wasn't hypnotized and completely out of, I mean, this was truly just Cynthia guiding me deeper into myself and asking me questions and probing. But I think there's something to your energy because it was like I immediately was able to drop in. I immediately was able to access that and then move through it. And I had a really big emotional release while I was sitting there. And this was all within like the matter of an hour. And so I'd love, if you don't mind, if you could talk a little bit about your process just to demystify it for people so they understand, like, how can this be done remotely or how can this actually be impactful and effective for me?
Mhm. Yeah, I would love to. Well, I'd love to start with how people can do this on their own. And then it is so helpful to have an outside person. And I always have something on my calendar where I have an outside person helping me, even though I can work through so many things on my own with these tips. But it's important to get support, and it's also important to know how to show up for yourself. And so I
Right.
love this question that you're asking. The first thing is just remembering or recognizing that our emotions are, like you mentioned earlier, they're all good. They're all, and it sounds kind of cheesy, but I always refer to them as our friends, all of
Mhm.
them. They're there to relay a message so that we can do something about something, so that we have personal power to do whatever that we need to. And so the first thing is identifying what you're actually feeling. And at first, this can be hard. We all have intuition. We all have the ability to do this. Everyone. Some it comes easier, but we all have this muscle, it just needs to be strengthened. And so when I first have people start, for some, they're like, I don't know. And I invite to not say, I don't know, because then the brain's okay, we don't know. Just say, let me see. I'm not sure. Let me look into this, something like that. So you're opening up to just because you don't know yet doesn't mean you don't know, but it can feel like you don't know. That makes sense.
Mhm.
It's interesting when you start practicing and you just start listening, then you have these ahas where you're like, whoa, I didn't know I was believing that or had that suppressed emotion or whatever. And so taking time to ask yourself lots of questions. What am I feeling? And at first, it can be like, I'm upset. And then you just want to go keep asking until you have this aha, like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm overwhelmed, or that I'm worried that I won't be able to live up to this expectation or whatever that I committed to, or this commitment or whatever. And the really important piece about this is asking yourself questions or seeking for this answer without judgment we're usually judging ourselves, even if we don't mean to. So I like to start with whether I think I should or shouldn't feel this way or
Mhm.
believe this for whatever reason I do. And that's important because a lot of what we believe and experience is generational. We send information through the genes, and we can be born with a fear that our parents or grandparents had. It's a very real thing. And sometimes we have a belief that we formed as a child or even as an adult because of a hard thing that we went through. So it's important to ask ourselves questions and to do your best to practice without judgment. It does take practice. Also, some
Mhm.
people get stuck in what comes to their mind first off. So we get kind of stuck in the logical mind. It's important to always consider that and then go deeper. We're asking a question to receive an answer back from ourselves because sometimes our logical mind is running the show, our thinking mind, and our fight or flight, let's make this happen. We're going to take control. And the heart is so patient. It's, hey, whenever you're ready, I'll tell you what's actually going on because you're in
Mhm.
survival mode. What you actually need is, and so it's to really listen with your feelings. And that's what the nervous system helps facilitate is so we can feel. And that's where real answers come. Not real answers. The
Mhm.
logical one is helpful too, but deeper and sometimes the aha you're looking for.
Hey, sis, if you've done all the things, journaled, meditated, manifested, but something still feels off, it might be time to stop chasing and start magnetizing. The Magnetic Woman Facebook group is a free space where you'll learn the real tools to shift your frequency, align with your purpose, and attract from your feminine power. It's not just information, it's embodiment. And you'll be surrounded by conscious, like minded women who are walking this path right beside you. Come join us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes. I'll see you in there.
Let me ask you a quick question. So, as someone, and I was taking some notes, and these are like some incredible, incredible question prompts. So, I hope those of you that are listening pause the episode and write these out. The what I wrote was whether I think I should or shouldn't for whatever reason I do.
Mhm.
And I love that because it 100% bypasses it's okay, I get it. There's judgment. But for whatever reason, like I feel this way. I'm not saying whether it's
Mhm.
right or wrong or whether I should or I
Mhm.
shouldn't. It just is. And that then opens the door for moving forward. But if you don't do that, it's
Mhm.
like the door is shut for you actually being
Mhm.
able to access your truth. So, how do you approach it when someone is really dysregulated? Meaning, are you able to access that level of wisdom when you're stressed, anxious, your heart rate is up, you're in fear, fight, or flight? Is it even
Mhm.
possible?
Mhm, absolutely. And
Okay.
there's some things that can really be helpful. Where your breath is, your mind will go. So, one of the best things you can do is 10 deep breaths
Mhm.
or go for a walk because walking, the way you swing your arms, right, and move your legs, it helps you process. You don't even have to know how to process. Go for a
Yeah.
walk, do some deep breathing. The other thing that's really helpful is to do what I call a brain dump where you put a timer on for 2 minutes. And I say that so that 'cause sometimes people will write for a long time and that's okay. But then sometimes the next time you need to do it, you're like, oh, I don't have 45 minutes. So start with 2 minutes and write anything and everything that's on your mind, even if it's the most random whatever. Sometimes swear words will come up that you're like, whoa, or worries, or just like my to do list, whatever. A brain dump can help, okay, we got that all out. And then you can ask the next question. Sometimes I'll look at the brain dump and kind of look through and see if something highlights, like, oh,
Mhm.
here's the thing I need to address today. Or you can ask yourself, what is it that I'm really upset about right now?
Mhm.
And at first, it can feel like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm too dysregulated. And just come back to it takes practice. At first, it's a mess. It's like when you clean out a closet, you take everything out and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to even figure out where to put everything? It's like that. So the key is to keep going and oftentimes to go to a therapist or a trusted friend or somebody that can help facilitate if necessary.
Yeah, I do think, and as someone who has really spent a lot of time honing this, and I practice this daily, asking these questions of myself because I've seen the reward of it. And I've seen how quickly you can actually really start to move through things when you're willing to.
Mhm.
But I will say that it helped a lot that I did start with support. Because sometimes when you're new to this, and if you've been avoiding emotion, if maybe you have a belief that it's bad or it's scary or it's unsafe for you to feel a certain way, to have someone there holding space for you, reminding you, like, hey, you're safe. Everything is
Mhm.
fine. Like, you're safe for you to feel this again. You're safe for you to think about this again because you're not this person anymore. And I think sometimes we can't see our own eyeballs. It's like we're trying to see ourselves. And some people have an easier time seeing yourselves. But what I want to tell you is if you're listening to this and you're like, I just can't make myself journal, I can't make myself like stare at my own navel kind of situation, know that it gets easier. And not only does it get easier, but it actually becomes a place that you will find so much comfort in and actually some semblance of control because you know that you always have the ability. And I think, Cynthia, you and I spoke about this when we were last together, that learning this process of asking these questions of yourself and allowing the answers to come through you means you can be in session anywhere. You pick up your journal, you pick up your pen, and as long as you have some space, you're in session. Like, most people have to wait for their therapist to be available in 2 weeks. But if you learn this art and this skill, it can live alongside the other support that you're getting, right?
I love that so much.
It is one of the simplest, but the most powerful that I have found.
Yes, and you don't have to rehash every detail. This is something that's really important. If you just ask yourself, what do I need to identify today? Usually, and sometimes it does go to those deepest, scariest parts, and that's so that you can move it and resolve it. But it isn't that you have to rehash every single detail. You get really good at just asking, what do I need to know about this to be able to work through it?
Yeah.
And that's nice to know that it's not like you have to pull everything up, just what's necessary.
Yeah. I would love to also speak about hormones because I know this is something that you are supporting women with right now. And for me, and I think a lot of listeners listening, like I'm really committed as much as possible to taking a holistic approach to what I'm doing, but at the very least, getting the information and then being able to make a conscious decision, right? About what do I need and not just having to take one opinion that might
Mhm.
maybe isn't aligned with what I want to do. And so I naturally seek out naturopaths. I like to seek out those that are willing to think of different ways and can look at this from different angles. So, how do you support women specifically that come to you and are presenting maybe symptoms or issues of imbalances as it relates to hormones?
Mhm. What's interesting, the way I was led to this is it really has so much to do with what we're experiencing with our feelings. So there's this overall perspective from the world. I feel like that women hit their mid years and they're crazy. We kind of laugh at some of these funny things that happen to women, to us when we're in this stage, but it's actually really sad, like, calling a woman she's nuts or crazy or she's lost it actually makes me feel really sad, and I feel like it's important for women to recognize this is something happening to you. This isn't
Yeah.
you something's wrong with you. Our hormones affect every function in our body. And they do shift at middle age, and it's meant to be. It's a renewal. It's a restart. It's a beautiful, amazing thing. And sometimes we have to fall apart to come back together in our new way. And so the way that I support women is it's a whole healing approach. It does have to do with cycle tracking, knowing your cycle. And it doesn't have to be complex. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming to women, but just knowing where you're at in your cycle, what does the cycle look like, and then getting in whole food in the way that works with your cycle, exercising in the way that works for your cycle, and then
Mhm.
dealing with the emotions, like a midlife crisis. I don't know if I really love that term, but I still use it because a midlife crisis is a gift. It is meant to be to stop you in your tracks and be like, do I like what I'm doing? Do I like where I'm at? What does my body need? What does my mind need? What does my spirit need?
I 100% agree with everything that you're saying. Because here's the thing. So I'm 45. I recently turned 45. And I've probably started to exhibit minimally, but some of the symptoms that you would read about with perimenopausal. But here's my theory on this, and I'm curious what you think because I remember I've always been that person. Thankfully, I was told I was really healthy from a very young age. I was the healthy child out of 4 kids. I was the one who didn't have
Wow.
asthma, who didn't have any allergies. I didn't have any chronic issues. The rest of my siblings did. So all I heard growing up from my mom was, "Oh, she's my healthy child." Well, that was a really positive belief that was programmed into my brain.
Mhm.
And so when I would hear things like women like complaining about PMS or like my PMS symptoms are horrible. I just always kind of had this belief like, yeah, that won't happen to me. Or pregnancies. I might have had the easiest pregnancies known to man, but I think it was just because I just was so arrogant that I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine." Literally, it was so easy. I didn't have 1 day of nausea. I didn't gain a pound over 20 pounds. I mean, like, it was so easy for me. But this was a big lesson for me because I didn't have beliefs like that in all areas of my life. This was just one area that I had really
Mhm.
positive beliefs. So knowing what you know about emotion and knowing what you know about, like, neuroscience and the brain and mindset, how much of menopause and perimenopause do you think is mental and expectation
Mhm.
driven, where we're kind of like, you know what I mean? We become, it's like the self fulfilling prophecy. And how
Mhm.
much you actually think is the body itself that's out of our control.
I feel like it definitely our emotions and our beliefs have a direct effect on our body, so I think it
Mhm.
affects it as much as our lifestyle
Yeah.
equally, right? And when we have a thought or a feeling, our body creates a physical chemical. So we really do directly affect our body. And I had a lot of PMS issues growing up, and it had a lot to do with what I was experiencing in my life. And also, adrenal fatigue is a real thing for women. I would say 99% of women need adrenal support when they hit that age. That's the first place to start, and it's because we're multitasking and we're stressed. Even if
Yes.
we're happy, it's like all these things we need to get done, and it puts a burden on our adrenals just from all the thinking. And that's another thing is we all need to realize that just thinking takes a lot of physical energy. And we usually can push through, I've got it, and I can go to bed late and wake up early and keep going. And then boom, sometimes it's just one day out of nowhere, the adrenals shut down, or your hair's falling out, or you gain 5 pounds you can't get rid of, or depression. And you're like, where is this from? The body can only take so much. So it's a long time coming. But yeah, it has so much to do with our thinking.
It is an interesting thing because when you think about that age, typically, if you've had children, they might still be dependent on you. Parents are getting older, they might become dependent on you. And then you're still in that where you're still working. For some women, they're running a business. For some women, they're supporting their husband who might be running a business. And it is a busy time of life. For me, that's really where I will say when my adrenals started to say no more and my anxiety levels were like, and I've never been an anxious person. That was what gave me pause. But
Yeah.
simultaneously, it's what catalyzed me to shift into a different way of being. And cycle tracking was and still is what I would say when women say, okay, if you gave me one thing to do that is like a tactical, tangible change that I could implement in my life, for me, cycle tracking gave me a structure to follow to fall back into regulation because
Mm.
it comes with built-in rest and it
Yes.
comes with built-in understanding of, oh, this is just a time of my cycle when I'm more critical, or this is just a time of
Mhm.
my cycle when I question everything.
Or cry over everything. Yeah.
Yes, not trying to force myself to be all over social media with jazz hands. And
Mm.
there's certain days in my cycle where I just want to, I could curl up in my bed and I don't want to talk to anybody. So I don't ask
Yeah.
that of myself. That's self love, right?
Yes. Yes, and knowledge is power. So, like you
Yes.
said, just knowing, oh, this is where I'm at in my period. This week is when I end up like feeling like things are agitating me that normally don't. And
Yeah.
instead of thinking, what is wrong with me? I'm a mess. It's like, no, here's where I'm at. This is like normal to feel different throughout the cycle. And just for one tip here, even if you just started one thing, is knowing the week leading up to your period, you need more rest, you need more
Mhm.
self care, you need more carbs so your body can build up the progesterone to start a normal cycle, and that it's whole food. We need carbs, we just need it to come from a healthy source. Um, Allow yourself to have more of that food and that rest.
I love that. And it's not like you said, it's not rocket science, but I do know that it can feel overwhelming to women who are like, "That's just not possible." I heard about cycle tracking years ago, Cynthia, like years and years and years ago. And I remember reading it about it and like, "Huh, interesting." But I was
Mhm.
like, "There's no way." I was working, I don't know, 60-hour weeks, and I was momming and I was wifing and I was doing all the things. I mean, I don't think I can go to my at the time I was working in an organization, I was like, I can't go to my boss and say, "Oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to really lighten the load of my calendar on these days because I'm gonna be leading up to my period or I might be a little more
Mhm.
tired." So what do you recommend to women who have that thought right now, who are like, "Yeah, that's really not gonna work for me. Like my calendar is set. I don't have
Mhm.
control over my calendar."
You will prolong your pain. You will just prolong your pain by
It's so
saying,
true.
"I don't have time for that." And you don't even have to tell others, you don't have to say exactly why, but you want to know where you're at so you can set healthy boundaries like, "Oh, I'm not able to work on that this week." Or you can even say, "I'm not feeling myself. I don't have all the energy this week, but I know I'll be able to do it next week." And just start looking in your calendar and being more intentional about here's where
Mhm.
my big project should be due, whether that,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
And for those of you that are listening and maybe you haven't heard of cycle tracking yet, could you just like real high level do a here are the phases and then maybe one or two tips between each one of some things they might want to consider changing?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one is your follicular phase, and that starts on the day that your period starts. So there's really four. We'll go into because a lot of times we just refer to the two main, so follicular and luteal. And so the fourth week, that week leading into your where you're going to start again, that's where you want to slow down and get more food and more self care. You're always doing the self care, but it looks a little different, right? And that's where you don't want to do as much cardio and hard lifting. That's more like yoga and going for a walk. So, those are the two main phases. And if you are not at least aware and slowing down a bit and listening to your body and then ramping up when your body is ready, you really just are working against yourself. So even if you just learn about the follicular phase and the luteal phase, and I do have a
Mhm.
course that guides, there's like step-by-step plan, like super simple. And then there's also modules for those that want to go deeper. So if someone wants to learn about their endocrine system and go deeper into the cycle, it's there. But you could even just Google and learn a little bit about it. I
Mhm.
think the problem that we've had through the years is there's not been enough information and we have
Mhm.
not been speaking about it. When I was really diving in and learning, I'm like, how did I go so many years not knowing about my own body?
Yeah.
And we just weren't talking about it. And so now I'm feeling so called to speaking about it. It's essential, it's necessary, it's needed, and women need to be empowered to know how their body works. Even
Mhm.
if it's overwhelming, you don't have to know all the details, but I would invite women to take some time to learn about some of the main pieces.
Well, and what you'll find, at least for me, number one, I have a daughter who is 10. So she's not menstruating yet, but she's not far off. And I love to study the divine feminine and really like how our ancestors used to approach this. And their perspective on menstruation was very different. It was sacred and it was protected and it was beautiful. And
Mhm.
a woman or a girl coming into her menstruation or her time of menstruation was a big deal, and they would celebrate it with a ceremony. It was like she was stepping into her gifts, her spiritual gifts, her purpose, her ability to create life. It's a big deal. Whereas for me, and this was no fault of anyone's because this is
Mhm.
how just generationally how we've all I mean, I was given like, here's a box of tampons and good luck. You know what I mean? It was
Mhm.
kind of like
Mhm.
you talked about it like hush hush and in private, you like, do you have your period? Do you have your period? And then it was like, ugh, it was like a plague that no one wanted to talk about. We all pretended like we didn't have. And then until we would complain about period cramps, like we really only saw the negative side. And what I am really trying to instill in my daughter is the positive side. And that's been one of the greatest gifts of this is I have completely been able to re-see my body and for the powerful, just incredible technology that it is. There's certainly, when you're menstruating, you're more intuitive. Your left and your right brain are talking. The veil is thin, y'all. Like this is going to be your best time for ideas. Then you get in your follicular phase and you're freaking an execution queen. Like you want to do things. Like you don't have to make, you want. Then you ovulate, you're shining. You're actually scientifically more magnetic when you're ovulating. They have done research studies for women in sales. When they pitch or when they sell and they're ovulating, their close ratio goes through the roof. It's like pollen calling in the bees. And we don't use this to our advantage,
Right?
right?
Wouldn't you wanna harness that? That's motivation to learn about your cycle so you can use it, and isn't there's times where you're like, "Why is it not flowing? Like, why can I not do this right now?" Where other times you're in the flow and it's not because something shifted in you and you're not
Yes.
capable right now. Yeah.
I love your approach. And I love, again, for me, as someone who is, I would say I'm very multidimensional in my gifts, talents, and abilities and how I like to share and pour into women. I teach in many different levels. I love numerology. I bring it all in. And I feel like we need more women like you that are doing this because I feel like we're encouraged to pick a lane, like stay in your lane. This is
Mhm.
what you do. You don't do this over here. But then that's not who we are. I don't think naturally again, I keep using this word, we're so multi-layered. I love that you treat the root, right? You don't just cut the top. You like actually go and
Mhm.
help treat the root of the issue while
Mhm.
simultaneously helping educate women how to create balance and wholeness in their physical body.
Mhm.
And that knowledge, in my opinion, is priceless. It's
Me
priceless. It's
too.
power,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, it is.
So, what are you most excited about for 2026? Before we close this out, I'm curious, what are you excited about? Are you creating something? What's on your
Mm.
heart?
I love that question. I'll just speak right to what we've been talking about is I'm
Yeah.
so excited to speak up for women. And I will say I do love that men are talking about menopause because they should care. I'm so grateful they care. At the same time, it makes me really like, okay, we need to have a woman talking about this. I'm so glad you're learning that. I'm glad you're speaking up, but I'm like, let me talk about this. This little
Yes.
attitude comes in like I'm listening to a podcast of two men talking about menopause, and I'm like, while I'm grateful that they care, I'm really annoyed. Let's get some women talking about this. So I'm so excited. I feel like it's just a shift in the world for
Mhm.
women to show up in a beautiful way. It's not crowding out or pushing men out. It's like men and women coming together, right? And when I first felt to focus on hormones a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to really talk about some personal things. Do I want to talk about this? Because for me, it also was like, well, years ago before I started making the changes when I was 20, I had horrible PMS, horrible, heavy, heavy, heavy periods. And I was just really angry about the whole thing. And I remember talking to God about it. Like, I know I'm the one that's off. I'm sure there's something for me to learn, but just so you know, I'm really mad about this. Can't there be another way? Like, why does there have
Mhm.
to be the way it is? And I kept having consistently these little feelings like this isn't how it's supposed to be because mine was such a horrible experience. And I kept feeling like it's sacred, it's beautiful. But those were never the words for one, because we didn't really talk about it openly. And then it was easy to be like, ew, or annoyed, or whatever, came at the
Mhm.
wrong time, trying to hang out with my friends and go swimming or whatever. But it just was always there. And so when I hit perimenopause, I had these horrible symptoms show up, kind of like what happened before I healed, show back up. And I was able to revisit and come to that place to realize my body is so beautiful. This is amazing and
Yeah.
sacred, right? And so I'm excited about sharing and shifting the way it's talked about so that it can shift within us. Because
Yes.
if we're feeling negative feelings about a period, it's going to physically affect us. It's like we're working against ourselves. So now we're coming together with respect and love. And it takes wisdom and education to realize, let's realize how miraculous this system is. We
Yeah.
have the hypothalamus and the pineal gland communicating what hormones to release because it needs this for this time and this for that, and how intelligent our body is. And thinking about, okay, if I'm going to really head this up and help women, I'm going to have to talk more openly about things. I'm a pretty open book in a lot of ways and then really private in a lot of ways. And that private part of I'm going to talk about my period. I'm going to talk about things that we
Yep.
haven't been talking openly about. And I had a moment where I was like, am I willing to do this? And it took about 1 second where I'm like, yeah, I am. Let's talk openly about this. So let's do it, ladies. Let's do it and just be
Yeah.
the amazing, beautiful women that we are, working with our body and with our heart and with our hormones, and share what we're meant to share. And by doing that, we gain so much joy and success in the
Mhm.
way that we're meant to have it.
And simultaneously release generational shame around
Yes.
talking about it, which might
Mhm.
possibly be the most destructive part because shame is one of the most destructive. I mean, I know all emotions are emotions, but when it's something that's over time and we feel like we hide because we're ashamed of something, I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that half the world, at least half the world's population is women, and we feel shame about talking about something we all experience. Like, what? You know what I mean? I think collectively we're ready. We're like, wait a minute. Like, this conversation, it's to be had with our head held high. And if someone has a hard time with that, then you know what? That's on them. But this is a function of bodies that were created by our creator. And there are no mistakes there. And it's magic, right? And it's power. And I think that you're going to help so many women do that. And so I am here for it, Cynthia. I am here for seeing you get out there and just share your story and share your gifts and share your genius with the world in the way that only you can. And with your energy, which is such a blessing to humanity because you're like regulating just being in your space. Just talking with you right now, I feel regulated. So, where can the listeners find you and how can they work with you?
So on Instagram, it's The Healing Food, all lowercase, no spaces. So The Healing Food, or my website is cynthiasumner.net.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
everyone's going to go and you're going to find her on Instagram. And as a takeaway, what I would love is, and here's what I want to challenge everyone. And hopefully you wrote down those statements, those questions for self inquiry that you can use whether you're journaling in the morning or when you notice you're triggered around something. And what I would love for you to do is try it. And then I want you to come and comment on this episode and let us know what your experience was. Because when you can share that experience and when you anchor the experience and simultaneously let be seen by other people, not only are you teaching, but you're fully learning the lesson. And I also would urge you to go and follow Cynthia on Instagram and share with her too. Because as teachers and as people that are answering the call of their purpose and putting themselves out there, it is the greatest gift that you can give to us to mirror back and reflect the impact
Mm.
that we are creating in the world. And we look forward to doing the same for you. So,
Yes.
with that, I want to thank you, Cynthia, again for joining, for your time and energy, and for just being you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a beautiful conversation. I loved every second.
As always, I always love my time with you. And for everyone listening, I love you, I see you, and I cannot wait to connect on next week's episode.
Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to pass it along to another woman who might need these words today. And if you feel called, it would mean so much if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast. It's one of the best ways to support this work and help these messages reach more women who are ready to remember who they are. And if you'd like to stay connected or share what's landing for you, come find me over on Instagram. I'd love to meet you there. Until next time, keep trusting your rhythm, keep honoring your voice, and keep becoming the woman you were always meant to be.